The war between humans and the Zellari had finally ended. For years, the galaxy had echoed with the sound of guns, fire, and screams. But now there was only silence, heavy and cold like the calm after a storm that had taken too much. The stars still burned above, but their light felt distant, almost ashamed of what had happened beneath them. Captain Ethan Cross, a human officer of the United Earth Fleet, walked through the recovery wing of the medical ship Horizon Dawn. The air was filled with the quiet hum of machines and the soft beeping of heart monitors. There were humans and aliens here, soldiers from both sides, wounded and broken, trying to remember what peace was supposed to feel like. Ethan had seen too much pain, too much death. He had lost friends, brothers, and even his faith in kindness. But something inside him still refused to hate. He believed that peace could exist, that maybe not all of the Zellari were monsters. He wanted to see it for himself. That's when he noticed her. She sat alone by the wide glass window, staring at the endless stretch of stars outside. Her body was wrapped in thin white fabric, her posture stiff, proud, but fragile. Her skin was faintly silver, glowing softly under the lights. Her hair shimmered like dark water, falling loosely over her shoulders. But half of her face was burned. Deep scars ran down her cheek and neck, reminders of a plasma explosion. Most humans looked away when they saw her. Some even whispered cruel words. She was an enemy after all, a Zellari pilot who had once shot down human ships. But Ethan didn't look away. Something about the sadness in her eyes held him still. He took a slow breath and walked closer. "You shouldn't be up yet," he said gently. "You're still healing." The alien woman turned her head, her golden eyes narrowing. Her voice was low, melodic, but tired. "Why do you care, human?" Ethan paused. He could have said 100 things, that it was his duty, that the medics told him to check. But instead, he said quietly, "Because you're hurt." "That's enough reason." The woman blinked, surprised. No one had spoken to her like that since the war ended. Humans had treated her like a prisoner. Even her own people had abandoned her when she was captured. But this man's tone, it carried no hate. He didn't move closer. He just stood there beside her bed, his eyes calm and honest. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Lyra," she said finally. "Pilot of the Zellari Air Wing." "Ethan," he replied, offering a small smile. "Captain of the Earth Fleet. I guess we used to be enemies." Her eyes turned back toward the stars. "Used to be," she said quietly. "But for some of us, the war never ends." Ethan looked at her scars again, not with pity but with quiet respect. "Maybe peace starts when we choose to stop fighting inside," he said. Lyra let out a weak, bitter laugh. "You speak like a poet, human, but you know nothing of loss." Ethan's smile faded slightly. "Maybe not your kind of loss, but I've buried people too." The silence between them grew heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Outside, the stars shimmered faintly against the blackness, and for a moment, it felt as if the whole galaxy was listening. Ethan finally took a step back. "You should rest. The doctors will be here soon." As he turned to leave, Lyra's voice stopped him. "Human," she said softly, "why are you different?" He looked back, confused. "Different? You don't look at me with hate," she said. "You don't look away either, why?" Ethan thought for a moment, then gave a small, tired smile. "Because hate doesn't heal anything. And maybe we've both had enough of that." Lyra looked at him, really looked, for the first time. His uniform was worn, his eyes shadowed with pain, but his kindness was real. Something in her chest shifted, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. As he walked away, she whispered to herself, "Strange human." From that day onward, Ethan Cross visited the recovery wing every evening. He told himself it was just routine, a soldier checking on the wounded. But deep down he knew it was something else. There was something about the alien woman with the scarred face and golden eyes that wouldn't leave his thoughts. And for Lyra, the human captain's voice began to echo in her dreams, a voice that didn't bring fear or anger but something softer. Something she didn't understand yet, something that might one day heal her. Lyra could not sleep that night. The human's words echoed in her mind again and again. "Hate doesn't heal anything." His voice was calm, gentle, something she wasn't used to hearing from a human. For years, she had been taught that humans were cruel invaders who destroyed everything they touched. But Ethan Cross? He didn't sound cruel. She sat on the hospital bed, her silver hands clutching the thin blanket. The room was quiet, lit only by the soft blue glow of the medical lights. Every few seconds, the monitor beeped beside her, a small reminder that she was still alive even when part of her wished she wasn't. Her reflection in the glass caught her attention. Half of her face was still covered in dark scars, twisted and uneven. The doctors had done their best to heal her burns, but the damage was deep. Zalari's skin healed slowly, and even when it did, it never looked the same again. Back on her planet, scars meant imperfection. They meant weakness. Beauty was everything among her people. The smoothness of skin, the symmetry of form, the grace of movement. But now, whenever Lyra looked at her reflection, she saw only a monster. Her fingers brushed against the ruined part of her face. She whispered to the empty room, "I am not beautiful anymore." The next morning, she tried not to look at anyone when the medics came. Humans passed by her bed and stared, whispering things they thought she couldn't hear. Words like enemy, killer, creature. Each one felt like a small knife in her chest. Then Ethan appeared again. He wasn't wearing his full uniform this time, just a plain shirt and black jacket. He carried a small tray with food and a gentle smile that made her frown in confusion. "You came again?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "You didn't eat yesterday." "The medics told me." She looked away. "I don't need your help, human." "I know," he said softly, setting the tray on the table beside her. "But you deserve kindness anyway." Lyra's golden eyes narrowed. Why would a human care if a Zalari eats or starves? Ethan sat down on the chair near her bed. "Because war doesn't make us less alive. You fought for your world. I fought for mine. We both lost too much." His voice had a strange sadness that Lyra couldn't ignore. She wanted to ask what he had lost, but she didn't. Instead, she said, "Your people killed mine. You burned our skies. You call that kindness?" Ethan looked down for a moment. "And your people burned our cities. You killed children in the colonies. None of us are innocent, Lyra." The air between them went heavy. She expected him to leave, but he didn't. He simply looked at her, not with anger, but understanding. "Maybe that's why peace matters so much now," he said quietly. Lyra turned her face away. "Peace is just a word humans use when they are tired of fighting." "Maybe," Ethan said. "But I think peace is what happens when someone finally chooses to stop hating." His words stayed in the air long after he left. Lyra sat there, her mind full of thoughts she didn't want. She hated that he made her think, made her feel. She wanted to stay angry. It was easier than remembering everything she'd lost. That night she dreamed again of the battle, the burning ships, the screams of her comrades. She saw the explosion that took half her squadron. She remembered crawling from the wreckage, her skin burning, her eyes full of smoke, and she remembered the human ship that had saved her instead of killing her. When she woke up, she was trembling. The memory felt fresh, like it had just happened. Her eyes moved to the tray of food still sitting beside her bed. She hadn't touched it, but she noticed something on the edge of the plate, a folded note. It was written in shaky handwriting. "Eat well, pilot. You're still strong." "Ethan," Lyra read the note twice. It was simple, clumsy, human, but there was something warm in it. Something she hadn't felt since before the war. She pressed the small paper between her fingers and stared at it for a long time. A strange thought crossed her mind. Maybe humans were not all monsters. Maybe one of them was different. And for the first time in years, when she looked at her reflection, she didn't just see a scarred soldier. She saw someone who was still alive, someone who could still heal. She didn't smile, not yet, but a spark, small and fragile, began to light up in her heart. Days passed quietly on the medical ship Horizon Dawn. The war felt far away, yet its shadows still lingered in the eyes of everyone on board. Wounds were healing, but scars, the invisible kind, took longer. For Lyra, time felt strange. She was healing, yes, but she didn't understand why the human captain still came to see her. Every evening, Ethan Cross would appear with his quiet smile, carrying something small, a book, a data pad, sometimes just a story. He never forced her to talk. He just sat nearby and spoke softly about things she had never heard of. He told her about Earth, a blue planet full of oceans and forests, rain that smelled like life, and creatures that sang in the trees. He spoke of laughter, music, and the taste of real fruit. He described sunsets that painted the sky in colors so bright they hurt to look at. At first, Lyra didn't believe him. Her world Zalara had once been beautiful too, but now it was silent and burned. Still, when he talked, she closed her eyes and tried to imagine his world, to see it through his voice. For a few minutes each evening, she almost forgot her pain. One evening, when the ship drifted quietly through the stars, Lyra sat by the window again. Ethan joined her without saying a word. The stars reflected softly on her silver skin, but she kept her head turned so he couldn't see her scars. "You always sit by this window," he said. "It's quiet here," she replied, "and the stars don't stare." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe they do. Maybe they're just polite about it." Lyra looked at him puzzled. "You humans joke too much." "Maybe," he said, still smiling. "It helps us survive the bad days." There was silence for a moment, peaceful and fragile. Then Lyra spoke again, her voice lower this time. "Do humans really think the stars are beautiful?" "Yes," Ethan said softly. "They remind us that no matter how dark it gets, there's always something still shining." Lyra stared at him for a long moment. She wanted to argue, to say the stars were just burning gas and light. But she didn't. Deep inside, she knew what he meant. Her eyes drifted to the reflection in the glass, her scarred face beside his calm one. The sight made her chest ache. She quickly turned away. "Don't look at me like that, human." "Like what?" "Like I'm not broken." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Because you're not," she laughed bitterly. "You don't understand. Among my kind, beauty is power. My face was my pride. Now I'm less." He was quiet for a moment. Then, with a gentle voice, he said, "Maybe beauty isn't what they told you it was." Lyra frowned. "Then what is it, human?" "Strength," Ethan said. "Survival. The way you still stand after everything. That's beauty, too." The words sank deep inside her like warm light spreading through cold metal. No one had ever said something like that to her, not even her own people. To them, her scars were a shame. To him, they were proof she lived, but she couldn't let herself believe it so easily. "You humans always find strange meanings in everything," she said. Ethan smiled softly. "Maybe that's why we're still here." He stood up to leave, but she spoke before he could go. "Ethan," she said quietly. He stopped. "Why are you kind to me? After what I've done to your people?" He looked at her for a moment. His eyes were tired but gentle. "Because kindness isn't a reward, Lyra, it's a choice." She didn't know what to say. When he left, the room felt too quiet. She looked at the window again, at her reflection, and for the first time, she didn't turn away immediately. Her scars still hurt to see, but she noticed something else too, a faint glow returning to her golden eyes. She touched her cheek softly, not with disgust but curiosity. Later that night, she dreamed of oceans again, vast, blue, endless. She dreamed of laughter echoing through waves, of sunlight on her skin. When she woke, she didn't feel pain first. She felt, as for the first time since the war, she realized that not all wounds had to define her, and though she didn't say it aloud, she was beginning to understand something, that maybe this strange human wasn't just healing her body. Maybe without knowing it, he was healing her soul. Weeks passed on the horizon dawn. The medical wing grew quieter as the patients were slowly discharged. Humans and Zilari were being sent back to their worlds, and peace talks had already begun between the two races. But even with peace returning to the galaxy, something else was growing quietly in the corner of that ship. Something small and human, yet powerful. Lyra had started walking again. Her burns were healing faster now, her movements less stiff, her voice softer than before. She no longer avoided the mirror completely. Sometimes she would glance at it for a second. Not long, but long enough to remind herself she was still alive. Every evening, Ethan visited her, just as he always did. Sometimes he spoke of his home. Sometimes he listened to her stories about Zilara, the floating gardens, the silver skies, the way her people sang to their moons. Slowly, the distance between enemy and friend faded into something else, something neither of them dared to name. That night they sat together by the window again. The stars outside seemed brighter, closer. Lyra's hair shimmered faintly under the ship's lights, and for a moment Ethan thought she looked like part of the stars themselves. "You're quiet today," he said gently. She nodded. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About why you keep coming here." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I like the company." Her golden eyes turned toward him, sharp but searching. "There are many humans here. You could talk to any of them. Yet you sit with me, An enemy, a scarred one. Ethan didn't answer at once. He looked out at the stars instead. "You're not my enemy anymore, Lyra. Then what am I?" she asked softly. He turned to her, meeting her eyes. "Someone I want to understand." Her breath caught for a moment. She looked away, her heart beating faster than she wanted. She didn't understand why his words made her feel different. After a few minutes of silence, she spoke again, her voice quieter this time. "Ethan, may I ask you something strange?" He nodded. "Of course." She hesitated, her hands gripping the edge of the chair. Then, without looking at him, she whispered, "Why do you call me beautiful, human?" Ethan blinked. He hadn't expected the question to come so suddenly. He had said the word before, softly, almost without thinking, when she had smiled once or when the light caught her eyes just right. But he didn't know she had noticed. Lyra turned to him slowly. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of something deep. Pain, fear, hope. "I hear you sometimes," she continued. "You speak softly, but I hear it. You call me beautiful. I do not understand why. My face is scarred. My body is damaged. How people would look at me and see failure." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "So tell me, human, why do you call me beautiful?" For a moment, Ethan didn't speak. He looked at her, really looked, at the scars, the silver of her skin, the sadness in her eyes. And he realized something. He said quietly, "Because I see you, Lyra." She frowned. "You see me?" "Yes," he said softly. "Not the scars, not the uniform, not the enemy. You, the person who survived when everything was burning. The one who still looks at the stars and wonders if peace is possible. That's what I see. That's what's beautiful." Lyra stared at him, stunned. No one had ever said anything like that to her. All her life, beauty had meant perfection, smoothness, grace. But he spoke as if beauty was something inside her, something she didn't even know she had. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You are strange, human." Ethan smiled a little. "Maybe, but I mean it." Silence filled the room again, but this time it was soft and warm. Lyra looked out the window, but her reflection caught her eye. For the first time when she saw her scars, she didn't feel hate. She thought of his words. "I see you." She turned slightly toward him. "Ethan," she said quietly, "when you look at me, you make me forget the war." His smile faded into something more serious, more tender. "Then maybe that's what peace really is." She didn't reply. But deep inside, her heart felt lighter, like something broken had started to mend itself. As Ethan left that night, Lyra watched him go, her golden eyes reflecting the stars and a new, unfamiliar warmth. She touched her scarred cheek softly and whispered to herself, "He called me beautiful, and I think I believe him." The days on Horizon Dawn grew warmer between them. What had started as simple visits had turned into something unspoken, something fragile, almost forbidden. Ethan and Lyra spoke of everything now, their worlds, their fears, their dreams. Sometimes they even sat in silence, but even that silence was soft and alive. Lyra had started to laugh again. Small, quiet laughs that surprised even her. Ethan would smile whenever he heard them. He had told her once that her laughter sounded like wind chimes on a calm night. She didn't know what wind chimes were, but she liked how it sounded. But peace is a delicate thing. It does not last long when the world still remembers hate. One afternoon, as Lyra and Ethan sat by the observation window, the sound of boots echoed down the corridor. The door slid open sharply and 3 Zalari soldiers entered, tall, proud, dressed in silver armor. Their leader wore the crest of the Zalari ambassador. Lyra froze the moment she saw them. These were her people. Her rank insignia still rested faintly on her old flight suit, and she knew what that symbol meant. They had come for her. "Pilot Lyra of the Zalari Air Wing," the leader said in a cold voice. "You are to return with us. The ambassador awaits your presence." Ethan stood up slowly. "She's still recovering." "You can't just take her." The alien soldier cut him off with a glare. "Stay out of this, human. You have no authority over her." Lyra's heart pounded. For a moment, she looked at Ethan, then back at her people. She felt trapped between 2 worlds. One that hated her for losing the war and one that wasn't supposed to care for her at all, yet somehow did. I need time," she said softly. "There is no time," the soldier replied. "You have embarrassed your kind long enough sitting among humans. Come." The words hit her like a blow. Embarrassed her kind? She looked down, shame and anger twisting inside her. For so long she had been a soldier, strong, obedient. But now she wasn't sure who she was anymore. Ethan stepped forward, his jaw tight. She's free to choose. You don't decide that for her. The Zalari soldier turned sharply. You dare to speak for her, human? Ethan didn't back down. No, but I'll speak to her. Lyra, if you want to go, I won't stop you. But if you stay, no one here will treat you like you're less. Lyra stared at him, her throat tight. He was giving her a choice, something she had never been given before. But she could feel the burning eyes of the Zalari soldiers on her, full of judgment. You think they will ever accept you? The leader sneered. You are a scarred thing, a broken pilot. They keep you here out of pity. Ethan's fists clenched, but before he could speak, Lyra stood up. Her voice trembled. Enough. The soldiers looked at her, surprised. Lyra, I said enough. She said louder this time. You call me broken, but I am still standing. You call me scarred, but I lived. Maybe your perfect face has never learned what survival means. The leader's expression hardened. You sound like them. Lyra's chest tightened. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. The silence that followed was sharp and cold. The soldiers exchanged glances, then turned to leave. The ambassador will hear of this, one of them warned. When they were gone, the room felt heavy with leftover tension. Lyra sat down slowly, her hand shaking. Ethan knelt beside her. Are you okay? He asked softly. Her golden eyes glistened with tears she didn't want to shed. They were right, she whispered. My people will never see me the same again. I don't belong there. But I don't belong here either. Ethan looked at her for a long time. Then he said quietly, You belong where someone sees you, Lyra. And I see you. The tears finally fell. She didn't answer. She just leaned her forehead against his shoulder, her body trembling with everything she had been holding back for so long. For the first time, she let herself cry, not like a soldier, but like a person. And Ethan just held her there, saying nothing. Because sometimes silence is the most human comfort there is. Outside the window, the stars continued to burn. Calm, distant witnesses to two souls trying to find where they truly belonged. The days that followed were heavy and quiet. Lyra barely spoke, and Ethan could feel the distance growing between them like a shadow stretching across a fading light. Ever since her people came to the ship, she had changed. She walked slower, spoke less, and often stared out the window for hours lost in thought. Ethan didn't push her. He knew what it was like to stand between duty and heart. The news came 3 days later. The Zalari Council had agreed to take their surviving soldiers back to their homeworld. A transport ship was on its way. Every injured alien was to be returned, including Lyra. Ethan heard the order through the intercom while he was in the medical wing. The words hit him harder than he expected. His chest tightened as he turned to look at her bed. Lyra was sitting there quiet, her hands folded in her lap. She already knew. So, he said softly, forcing a small smile. They're coming for you, she nodded slowly. Yes. My people have decided I have healed enough. The way she said it made his heart ache, like she didn't believe it. That's good, he said, though his voice trembled slightly. You'll be home again. Lyra looked at him with eyes that shimmered like sunlight on water.
Home, she repeated quietly.
I wonder if it still feels like home. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The air between them was full of words they didn't know how to say. That evening, Ethan found her by the same window where they had shared so many conversations. She was staring out at the stars again, but this time there was no calm in her expression, only sadness. They'll come tomorrow, she said softly. To take me back, he nodded. I know. She turned to him, her eyes filled with emotion she couldn't hide anymore. Ethan, will they remember me there? Or will I just be the scarred pilot who failed? Ethan shook his head. They'll remember your courage. You fought, you survived. That's more than most. Lyra looked away. You say that because you're kind. But my people value perfection. They see strength and beauty. I have neither. Ethan stepped closer. You have more than that, Lyra, you have heart. She smiled faintly, a sad, trembling smile. You and your strange human words. He smiled too, though it didn't reach his eyes. Maybe that's what makes us human. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her lips parting like she wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she whispered, Will you forget me when I'm gone? Ethan shook his head slowly. How could I forget the one who taught me what strength really looks like? Her eyes softened. You always say things that make it hurt to leave. He gave a quiet laugh, trying to hide the sadness in his voice. Then I guess I'm doing something right. When the time came, the docking bay was filled with soldiers, both human and Zalari. Lyra stood near the airlock, dressed in a clean uniform. Her face was calm, but her eyes told another story. Ethan stood a few steps away, watching her. Every second felt heavier than the last. He wanted to stop her, to say something that would make her stay, but he knew he couldn't. She didn't belong here, no matter how much he wished she did. When her name was called, she turned to face him. The noise around them faded as their eyes met. I guess this is goodbye, she said quietly. Ethan nodded, his voice low. For now. She stepped closer, just enough for him to hear her whisper. Thank you. For seeing me when no one else did. He wanted to reach for her hand, to say something that would hold her there, but before he could, she turned and walked toward the airlock. The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss, and she was gone. Ethan stood there long after the ship left the dock. The empty sound of engines fading away echoed in his chest like a heartbeat slowing down. That night he went back to the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before him, cold, distant, beautiful. And among them somewhere was the ship carrying her home. He whispered to the stars, his voice quiet but full of feeling. Be safe, Lyra. And as he stood there alone with only the hum of the ship for company, he realized something. She had left a piece of her light with him. Even across galaxies, some connections never fade. Months passed. The war ended. The silence of peace spread slowly across the stars, but Ethan felt no peace inside him. The ship was quieter now, emptier. He still walked the same halls, still checked the same med bay, but everything reminded him of her. The alien woman with silver eyes who once asked, "Why do you call me beautiful, human?" He had answered her with truth that day, because beauty to him wasn't perfection. It was strength in brokenness, and she had been both strong and broken, yet still shining. Sometimes when the night shift was quiet, he would stand at the window and imagine she was still there beside him, watching the stars in silence. He would almost hear her voice again, soft, thoughtful, asking questions about humans, about life, about him. But she was gone. Or so he thought. One evening, months after her departure, an incoming transmission appeared on his console. The signal was faint, marked with Zalari encryption codes. Ethan's heart raced as he opened the channel. Static filled the air for a few seconds, and then a familiar voice broke through. Ethan, are you there? He froze. That voice, and gentle, low, and full of warmth, could only belong to one being. Lyra? He breathed. Lyra, is that you? Yes? Her voice trembled with emotion. I wasn't sure you'd still be here. I'm still here, he said softly. Always have been. There was silence for a moment, then she spoke again. I needed to hear your voice. Ethan smiled, though tears stung his eyes. You sound different. I am, she said quietly. Things changed after I returned. My people welcomed me, but I felt like a stranger. They see the scars before they see me. They treat me as if I'm a symbol, not a person. I tried to belong again, Ethan, but I couldn't. He listened carefully, his heart aching for her. You don't have to belong to them, he whispered. You already belong somewhere. Her voice broke slightly. Where? Here, he said, with me. With the people who see your heart, not your face. There was a long pause. Then softly she asked, Would you really have me back even after all this time? Ethan laughed gently, a sound full of relief and love. Lyra, I never stopped waiting. A week later, the ship docked at a neutral station near the Zalari border. Ethan waited by the arrival gate, trying to calm his racing pulse. He told himself not to hope too much. Maybe she wouldn't come, maybe she couldn't. But then, she did. The doors opened and Lyra stepped through. Her uniform was simple, her scars still visible. But to Ethan, she was radiant. The way she carried herself now was different, stronger, calmer. Her eyes searched the room until they found him. When she saw him, her lips curved into a trembling smile. Human, she said softly. You're still the same. He chuckled, walking closer. And you're still terrible at greetings. She laughed, a sound that made his heart feel alive again. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, without thinking, Ethan stepped forward and took her hands gently in his. Her skin was cool, but her touch was real, warm with life. I thought you'd forgotten me, he said quietly. I tried, she admitted. But every time I looked at the stars, I heard your voice. I remembered your words, he smiled faintly. Which ones? Her eyes softened. The ones where you told me I was beautiful, not because of how I looked, but because I still tried to be kind in a cruel world. Ethan swallowed hard. You still are, Lyra, more than ever. For a long time they just stood there, two souls from different worlds, silent yet connected. Around them the station buzzed with life, but none of it mattered. In that moment only they existed. Finally, Lyra whispered, I came back to find something I left behind. Ethan looked at her with a gentle smile. And did you find it? Yes, she said, her voice barely above a breath. You. Later that night they stood again by a window, just like before. Stars stretched endlessly across the darkness, each one a reminder of how far they had come. Lyra leaned slightly toward him. Ethan, tell me again. Why do you call me beautiful? He looked at her. At the scars, at the light in her eyes, at the quiet strength that had never left her. Because, he said softly, you remind me that beauty isn't something we see. It's something we feel. You make the stars look dull, Lyra. For the first time, she didn't argue. She simply smiled, a full, radiant smile that reached her eyes. And for the first time in her life, she believed him. As the two stood under the silent glow of distant suns, neither spoke again. They didn't need to. The war had taken many things from them, but in its ashes, something rare had bloomed, a bond beyond blood, beyond species, beyond time. Humanity had always believed beauty was a gift, but Ethan had learned something deeper. True beauty was courage, only and love that defied the stars.